This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Hello and welcome to the GSMC Sports Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Jeff Malinoff, and with me is Mark Souza. We have a lot to talk about in the world of sports. We got the Thursday Night Football matchup between the Seahawks and the Packers, as well as what has happened in the NBA, as well as the Jazz losing by 50 to the very not talented Mavericks compared to the Jazz, but we'll get into that later. We'll also talk about Le'Veon Bell's teammates and how they reacted to him no longer being a part of the team, as well as a certain Pittsburgh State player and what he did in a game against Nichols College, and we'll get more on that later in the segments. But right now, we'll talk a little bit about the NBA. Most notably, like I said, the Jazz firmly got beaten by the Mavericks, and the main thing about this is the Jazz were looking to be a serious contender in the Western Conference, and now we're at 7-7 and struggling.
Yeah, you could say that they were looking at maybe the Warriors being the one team, maybe the Rockets, another team ahead of them, but in terms of where they were last year, where this team has been moving, guys like Rudy Gobert, Donovan Mitchell, everything had been looking up for the Jazz heading into the 2018 NBA season. But so far through 14 games, Jeff, it hasn't gone as planned. They're sitting at 7-7 right now, and you just talked about it. A brutal loss last night to the Dallas Mavericks. 68
points for an NBA team in one game. That's it, 68.
Yeah, what was the final score?
118 to 68.
Yeah, that sounds like
Kobe Bryant has scored more points in one game than this team by himself than the Jazz did this as a team.
There's not even going to be very many games where Duke wins by that many points in college, so that's a rough night for the Utah Jazz.
And for the Mavericks, they had four guys with 10 or more points, guys in the double digits. DeAndre Jordan again with 10 rebounds, but he's not been hitting his shots, only 4 points this game. But regardless, the team firmly handled their win over the Utah Jazz. Is this a big warning sign for Utah? Is this like all hands on deck?
I think this is a big deal. I know that people will say it's one game, it's early, but look, we know why the Jazz are good. The Jazz were good last year because they played defense. And they scored some points, yes, but they were a defensive-minded team. They were a team very well organized, very well coached. They could hit open shots, but their calling card was their defense. So we know how good they were.
Do you think they're concentrating too much on the offensive side of the ball that they're forgetting about? Like maybe not forgetting, but are not trying as hard as they have been on the defensive side?
I don't know what it is because basically the players are the same. I mean, you look at the team, and last year when they had Rudy Gobert in the lineup, they were awesome. I think they had the second or third best record, like win percentage wise, in the NBA last year when he was in the lineup. They struggled when he was out, but when he came back, they were great. He's been in the lineup this year. They're 7-7. You know, they gave up 118 points last night, which you could say that's a lot. But when you miss a lot of shots, it kind of allows you to get scored on a lot too. So I'm just not sure what to make of this team. Donovan Mitchell, his stat line is concerning me. He plays 25 minutes last night. He attempts only 9 shots. He's their best offensive player. He's their best scorer. 9 shots, only 3 attempts from 3. Very odd game. 10 points, 3 rebounds, 3 assists. Now, I get it. It was an off night, maybe for a lot of these players, but only to attempt 9 shots.
More than an off night, though. I mean, 68 points sounds a tad ridiculous.
Some of these numbers are staggering, too. 17% from three, 31% overall from the field. That is just brutal. I mean, you look at the Mavericks side, 58% from the field, 43% from three. Yeah, that's all basically that needs to be said right there, but I don't know. The Jazz get out-rebounded 51-33. And yeah, the Mavericks have DeAndre Jordan. I get it. But he only had 10 rebounds. I mean, it's not like he's out there gobbling up 30 rebounds or something like that. Rudy Gobert also had 10 rebounds. So it's a collective effort, right? So I'm just not sure what to make of the Jazz.
Effort of ineptitude.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, the Jazz, they did beat the Grizzlies and the Celtics in their last two games. And they had beaten the Mavericks last week by 15 points. So it's just a weird, I don't know if it's a one-off, but they're 7-7. And they just don't look like they're the team that's going to challenge the Warriors this year.
Yeah, they might be looking at outside the playoffs looking in, to be honest with you.
Isn't that funny, though? In the last week, they've beaten the Mavericks by 15. The Jazz, the Celtics, they beat by 8. They beat the Grizzlies by 8, who are very good right now. And then they just get smoked by the Dallas Mavericks. So I'm not sure what to make of it, but I am very concerned. That 7-7 record, what is that Bill Parcells quote? You are what your record says you are. I believe that's a Bill Parcells quote. But
there's a lot of quotes of him, mostly attacking the media.
So with that being said, it's like the Jazz for me, I think that they're still a playoff team, but I don't see them being the second or third best team in the West. Do you?
No, honestly, I don't.
Yeah, and right now, when you look at their division, they're in fourth. Portland, Denver, and OKC are all 2 games or more better than the Utah Jazz, and Minnesota's right on their heels. So things need to change quickly for the Jazz. I know it's a long season, but we are 14 games in of 82, and we know how competitive the West is. You don't want to have a loss like this kind of, influence your next upcoming games. And they have a tough schedule coming up. Their next few games, they play against the 76ers, the Celtics, and the Pacers in their next 3. And then they play the Kings and the Lakers and the Kings and the Pacers again. Those are all teams that are 500 or better.
Yeah, and some of those teams are actually shocking over 500 too.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really interesting to see what is going on.
You mean like the Lakers, right? You're pretty shocked they're over 500?
Yeah, that's exactly who I was talking about.
Yeah, I am too.
Yeah, so goose. Anyways, any other games you want to talk about that have been?
Oh, yeah. There was a lot of action last night in the NBA, but I'll go ahead and talk about, since I just mentioned their name, the Lakers. They win last night. A very impressive win. Maybe their best win of the season. At home, they take care of Portland 126-117. LeBron gets 44 points in the game. He passes Wilt Chamberlain for 5th on the all-time scoring list. So he keeps moving up the leaderboards. He's only 33 years old. He's got a lot of basketball left in him. So,
well, again, he's been playing since 18 in the NBA.
Yeah,
and so he's been playing for what feels like forever, and he's still young. All things considered. Mm-hmm. Like, what was Kobe in his 40s when he retired?
No, not
38, 39.
Kobe started at 18. He was probably mid-30s. But anyways, Rajon Rondo broke his hand last night. He'll be out for, they say, about a month, maybe, more or less. He was trying to get a loose ball. His hand hit the ground, and he broke it. So we'll see how long that...
You think this is going to be a huge dent in the team? I don't think it's going to be that. He's a good player, no doubt about it, but I don't think it's going to be crucial to them losing him. Because they have Ball, who plays the same kind of game.
They are similar players, but Rondo, I think, was a more stabilizing force for them. Lonzo Ball just looks completely out of sorts. He can't shoot. He still can't shoot. It almost seems at this point an air ball is just as likely as a make for him. Last night, again, I saw him struggle. I'm not sure what he finished with, but, he had... His shot just looks completely off. I mean, he was 4 of 11 last night from shooting, so 11 points, 6 boards, and 3 assists. in the win. But I think Rondo's absence hurts him. I don't think he is a truly difference maker for that team, but he is one of 2 point guards, so it will put a lot of stress on Lonzo Ball. I'm not sure if you want Lonzo Ball playing 35 to 40 minutes a night to lead your offense and to lead your basketball team, but we'll see how it goes. The Lakers have been playing better, so maybe it won't be that much of a problem. What do you think?
This Lakers team has been inconsistent since the beginning, so I really can't tell you how they're going to go without Rondo or how they're going to improve or how they're going to continue on, because LeBron passed Wilt Chamberlain on the all-time scoring list. He's now 5th all-time. Mm-hmm. But that's been the highlight of this season for them. Mm-hmm. There's not a game where they're like, wow, this team is a contender. This is still a team that's still finding an identity.
I will still sit here and say that this team will only go as far as their three-point shooting carries them. And again, last night, 46% from three. A very awesome shooting night from three for the Lakers, and they win. If you look at their wins and losses, all of their losses are going to point to one thing. They did not shoot the three ball well. And when you have this collection of players, you're going to have wide ranges in outcomes when it comes to three-point shooting. LeBron James is not going to go 5 of 6 every night. Lonzo Ball is not going to go 3 of 5 every night. Caldwell Pope, 3 of 4. I mean, they had a really good shooting night from beyond the arc. I don't think that they have the three-point shooting necessary for a deep playoff run, but on the nights like this, when they shoot 47%, they'll win.
Mm-hmm. But honestly, that's rare for them, though. That's the problem.
It is, yes, exactly. And, LeBron is 5th all-time. He's not too far off of Jordan. He's only about 800 points away from Jordan. He should do that here this year. He's only 2,000 points behind Kobe for 3rd. Then after that, it gets a little tougher because Karl Malone is about a little over 5,600 points ahead of LeBron. And then Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, 7,000 points. I don't know if he'll catch that. He'd have to play for a long time. But
Kareem's record may never be broken.
He could definitely get Jordan. He'll get Jordan this year, and then
the best I can say he gets is 2nd.
Yeah,
and that's a long shot.
The thing is, though, Jeff, is if he gets 2nd, he's actually not far from 1st because at that point he'd only be about 1,400 points, which is another season. You know what I mean? It's
will he play that other season? That's the question. Once he gets to there, he's going to be exhausted. Mentally, physically, emotionally.
Yeah, I mean he's gonna score probably another 1,200 points this year. So he should. Wow, if he scored 1,200, he would actually be about 15 points off of Kobe. So he could get to number 3 this year. It will be tough. He'd have to stay healthy and not miss too many games and things like that. But you gotta think that he
can't miss games, or else his team won't make the playoffs.
You got to think that he's at least going to be 3rd on the all-time list. Probably he might do it. He actually might do it if you really think about it. So, I mean, LeBron James has 31,000 points in 15 NBA seasons. So he's averaging about 2,000 points a season. Mm-hmm. That would mean that he literally has to play 4 seasons, and he has the record.
Yeah, but
comfortably.
But at the end of his career, that fourth season, is he going to be averaging still 2,000 or so points?
Probably not, but he could get most of those, I guess, in the next 2 years, maybe. So we'll see. It's interesting, though.
Yeah, true. But bottom line is, there are these teams that we said were going to be playoff contenders, no question.
Are you buying the Lakers right now, or are you still waiting?
I don't know. I'm still waiting.
What about Portland's been really good, so you're
Portland's been playing pretty great, 10 wins, or double-digit wins at least. And the fact remains, we've been talking about this, we said, oh, these teams are making the playoffs, no question, the Jazz and Lakers. But now we're, doubting it. We're can these teams make the playoffs?
What about...
I know it's LeBron James and all that, but he's got to have talent around him. And I think he had more talent in Cleveland than he does here.
It's hard to tell because this team is so much different. I mean, it's a completely different team. We will see, though. You're right. It's kind of one of those wait and see approaches. But I think we can both agree. If you have LeBron James, you should be in the playoffs, no matter who you are.
If you don't, that's incredible.
But let's move on to another team that's surprising us early on in this season for good reasons. Memphis. They beat the Bucks last night on the road, 116-113.
Gasol had a great game too.
Memphis is now 8-5, and they have some really impressive wins under their belt. So, are you buying them? Are you buying this Memphis Grizzlies team, who plays at a very slow pace? They're very different than most of the teams in the Western Conference. Are you buying them being a playoff team?
Can I get cash back on this?
You can stall if you want and say, hey, give me another like 10 games or so,
Give me like a month.
They beat a Bucks team with Giannis. Memphis is they've had some impressive games. Marc Gasol, Mike Conley, that they were hurt most of last season. But this year, it's a different year. Jaren Jackson Jr. has been a good rookie. He's not had to carry the bulk of the work for them, which is nice. But he is a nice addition to that team. Gives them another option. But I am very surprised by them. I'm very surprised. Not that Conley and Gasol aren't good players. But, I thought maybe, especially Gasol, at the back end of his career, I wasn't expecting him to do this well, honestly.
Yeah, I don't think anyone expected like this level of play. Like they expected like some solid effort.
He shot 12 threes yesterday. Marc Gasol made 6 of them. He's always been a good him and his brother, they've always been guys that are very skilled that can hit those shots. But in today's NBA, seeing a center shoot 12 threes, that's just another night in the NBA, no big deal.
Isn't that crazy how like the game is like we talk about the game is changing around us, but this is like a whole new level.
Imagine if we were doing this. Imagine people who are doing what we're doing right now, but like 30 years ago, if it was like in the 80s or like the early 90s, like
everyone's
a center shoots 12 threes. What? Like
they would not be on the team anymore.
That player's
be
bench.
Cut. They'd be cut.
So, a couple of quick games before we go to a break. Sixers lose in Jimmy Butler's debut, 111-106 to the Magic. It was the first game, but do you think this will be a positive move for them? Do you think Butler adds something to that team?
Well, he doesn't like discredit them, It's like it's a positive for them, no question about it. But it's his first game. Let's pump the brakes.
I agree.
There's a lot of didn't LeBron lose like his debut game when he was at Miami and so on and so forth?
Yeah, for sure. And it's just one game.
And remember when Durant went to the Warriors, everyone's like, "Oh, this team's gonna be undefeated." They lost their first game, so that doesn't really show much. So let's be patient with this.
Sure, I agree. And then with the Timberwolves, their first game without Jimmy Butler, with Covington and Saric, they win 107-100 against the Pelicans. Now Minnesota was at home. That's a nice win to start off this post-Jimmy Butler era, though.
What is this even is there even a Jimmy Butler era? Because he was there for how long? A season and a half? Maybe?
Yeah. He was there long enough to be in the news all the time. I mean, how many times did we talk about him, right?
Well, he kind of was being over dramatic, in my opinion, on that one. But, yeah.
Covington played 41 minutes in his first game for Minnesota. He led the team in minutes. Decent game, 13 points, 7 rebounds, 3 of 7 from 3. He's just going to be that guy that plays defense for them and hits threes every once in a while. So Saric off the bench in his first game, 20 minutes, 9 points. Not too notable there, but this team does have a little bit more balance and depth with that trade. I'm not saying that they're better. I don't think that they're better really, but it does give them a little bit more flexibility, and it does allow a guy like Wiggins and Towns to be more of the focal point. And last night, 25 for Towns, 23 for Wiggins. So they led the team in scoring there, while they get guys like Covington and Taj Gibson who can provide some of that defense. So we'll see how it goes from here.
Yes. The season's starting to heat up. I'm getting excited. You're getting excited. Everyone's getting excited. But we're going to take a short break, unless you want to continue with any other things you want to mark.
Just want to mention Celtics beat the Bulls easily. Heat over the Nets easy.
And grass is green.
Pistons, they get a big win over Toronto 106-104. But the main one, notable of the rest of the games, the Suns crushed the Spurs 116-96. That is weird.
And so the Spurs are on a 2-game losing streak at the moment. They've been struggling. But
Yeah.
we are going to take a short break.
Sure.
When we get back, we'll be previewing the Thursday Night Football matchup between the Seattle Seahawks and the Green Bay Packers, and we'll get right on that when we get back to you.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines. They got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back to the GSMC Sports Podcast. We just finished just talking about some NBA games that have happened in the last day or so. Mm-hmm. And now we are moving on to the NFL as Thursday night football is tonight. The Green Bay Packers with Aaron Rodgers versus Seattle Seahawks with Russell Wilson at CenturyLink Field in Seattle. Before I say any of their stats, before I mention anything about them, who do you have winning?
I have the Seahawks winning this game, and I'll tell you why. The Packers are 0-4 on the road. Seattle is a really good home team. Now, they're only 1-2 at home this year because they've only played 3 games. But I think Seattle's been playing a lot better recently. I like that they've kind of rebounded from the beginning of the year. They started off 0-2. They've kind of gotten back to, being a successful team. They're 4-5 right now. Now, I do want to mention, before I go further, if both of these teams still have a breathing chance of making the playoffs, they must win this game. The loser is completely and officially, not officially, but you know what I mean, out.
They're
unofficially out.
There's a slim, but if you're looking at the stats of this, I give it to the Packers. Aaron Rodgers only has 1 interception this season, 17 touchdowns.
Mm-hmm.
Like Russell Wilson, had 21 touchdowns, but 5 picks. So it's like, what's ratio's better, And Rodgers has 2,700 yards to Russell Wilson's 1,967 yards. And then Devontae Adams has 9 touchdowns this season, which is also very impressive, all things considered, for who you'd expect to be the leading receiver for the Packers. Mm-hmm. Devontae Adams was not the guy, in my opinion. But if you're looking at the stats, it's a pretty even matchup when it comes to points per game because it's 24.8 to 24.3 in favor of Green Bay. So only by point, like a decibel, is the difference. But points allowed, Green Bay's allowing 24 exactly to 21.3 Seattle. So it's going to be a close one. It's going to be high scoring. It's going to be at least 3 touchdowns for each of them. That's my guess, at least. That's my prediction. But when it comes to passing yards a game, like them throwing the ball, the Packers are doing 310 yards per game, which is pretty good, all things considered. And Seattle's only doing 218. So if Green Bay wants to win this game, they're going to have to throw the ball. But if Seattle wants to win this game, they should be running the ball because they're averaging 152 yards rushing a game.
Right. And they're more of a rushing team. So.
Yeah. So both of these teams need to do what they're best at. Green Bay's obviously better at throwing the ball, and Seattle's obviously better at running the football.
Green Bay's been getting better at running the ball lately, though, with Aaron Jones. He just had a big game, a big breakout performance. So
yeah, but I'd rather trust Rodgers with the ball than with Jones.
Right. They're a passing team for sure.
And these teams are both just looking for a win. 4-4-1, the Packers, and 4-5, the Seattle Seahawks. Like you said, whoever loses this game is probably going to be out of the playoff contention.
You think the Packers are better than Seattle? Like, I'm not talking about this game, but I just mean in general. Like, do you think that they're a better football team?
That's a tough one because they're pretty even on paper and watching them play. But I'm going to still give the edge to the Packers. I just think when it comes to who's better, it's the question is basically who's better, Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson. That's where it goes down.
But what about defensively?
Defensively, if you look at it, they're both pretty even.
Mm-hmm.
They're both allowing roughly the same amount of rushing yards and passing yards. Like, this is Green Bay's allowing 249 passing yards per game. Seattle's allowing 244. Rushing yards, Green Bay's 120.9 to Seattle's 118.6. So on paper, these defenses are pretty darn similar.
You're right. Yeah, I'm just not that impressed with the Packers. I mean, they really had to scramble to beat the 49ers on Monday Night Football, which I thought was very eye-opening to me. Like, that's a game that they should win. If they're going to be a decent football team, you need to win that game handily. You can't be having a comeback win. Now, I know they won the game, but what's important about that is they've lost to Detroit in the last 5 weeks. They beat the 49ers. They lost to the Rams, albeit they played a really good game. They were very close.
That was a very close game.
Mm-hmm. They got smoked by New England on the road, and they beat Miami. I don't know if that's really an impressive win, Miami with Brock Osweiler and Frank Gore. I mean, that they got the win. I'm not taking anything away from them. I just don't see nothing in their standing, like in their schedule this year so far with their wins and losses tells me they're a good team, especially the fact that I mentioned they have not won a road game. I mean, you can't be a good football team and not win on the road. And you're playing against, we could probably say Seattle might be the best home team, right? Like the hardest place to play, like the toughest. It's at least top 3, right?
Yeah, they kind of lost a little steam when they lost all their top guys as a team wise, and it kind of drove away some fans. If you've noticed it, I've noticed it. But yeah, there's still a loud crowd. It's how the stadium was built. It was built for noise. But it was also built like they basically made those 2 times for rain and such, but it also made a good place where your voice can echo onto the field, so you're feeling overwhelmed. And no other field does that. And I always talk about this. Do you remember back in the day, like this is like early 2000s, where the crowd would be so loud that the ref would stop the game and say, if you don't keep it down, we'll give your home team a penalty?
I don't remember that.
You don't remember that?
No.
If the crowd was too loud and the teammates and the team couldn't hear each other, they would throw a flag and say, it's like unsportsmanlike conduct.
How do they even legislate that? Like, how do you even tell like 67,000 people to stop
You say
talking?
We will penalize your team, and they will stop.
I don't know. Did that really happen?
I'm dead.
I have serious concerns that this happened.
Look it up. Look on YouTube. I'm dead serious.
I'm not saying that you're wrong. It's mind-boggling to me.
A referee I saw one time, this is early 2000s again, like I said, has said, please keep the noise down. If not, we will force a penalty of unsportsmanlike conduct on the home team.
And this was for Seattle?
Not just for Seattle. I think this was for Kansas City as well.
Okay.
But look it up. We look it up during break because I swear this happened.
Okay, I will. Go ahead, though. Okay, keep talking about this game.
Well, I kind of said my piece, but I just think that this is not the same Seattle team. This is kind of not the same Seattle fan base. They're kind of losing that 12th man edge type of feel.
But is this the same Green Bay team?
Obviously not. They're both very different teams than what the playoff teams we've seen in the past. But I'm still picking Aaron Rodgers over Russell Wilson. That's my take on it, at least.
You know, Russell Wilson has been playing very good recently. And you know, Seattle played the Rams extremely well. I thought that they played them, I mean, especially twice, to lose by by less than a touchdown twice and have a chance to win the football game. That was pretty impressive. We'll see how they do against the Packers. The Packers, though, I still remember that, and was it the NFC Championship or the divisional round game where the Packers lost to to Seattle. Or Seattle, Packers couldn't recover that.
You mean the NFC Championship game?
Yeah,
that was when they were up and the guy botched the onside kick.
Well, yeah, the Packers lost it because of the onside kick.
Well, the dude had it in his hands and it was good to go to Jordy Nelson.
But there was a lot of mistakes in that game. Like Mike McCarthy made some mistakes in that game. It just, I think that was such
They had their ticket to the Super Bowl in their hands and they blew it.
I don't think that team has forgotten that. At least McCarthy and Rodgers. I think that was maybe a defining moment in the tenure of.
I don't think it's Rodgers' fault. I think it's mainly the onside kick and I forget his name, but whoever missed that onside kick and had let it bounce off his helmet.
Threw his hands, hit his head.
And he wasn't even supposed to get the ball. He was supposed to do blocking, and Jordy Nelson was right behind him, who is a receiver.
Yeah, I think it was a tight end, right?
But he was a blocking tight end. He wasn't a receiving tight end. And it was just a mental error on his part. Mm-hmm. So it cost him the Super Bowl.
So it sounds like for the Seahawks, Chris Carson will be back. He'll be inserted in the starting lineup. We've seen now 3 running backs for Seattle have big games. Mike Davis, Penny had a huge game last game, the rookie. I say
Penny gets a majority of the snaps this game.
Maybe.
I think they're going to ease Carson back into the lineup, and I think it's a better idea for...
The thing is, though, is that Penny hasn't really been impressive to me. He's struggled a lot. He had a big game last week, but so did Davis. They all had big running games, so I don't know if it was more the Rams being unable to stop him or if it was actually Penny. There was a lot of big holes in that game.
Well, I guess we'll find out this game. This is the big test to see how that goes, to see how he can continue his momentum.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the game before that, Penny had 11 yards on 4 carries, and Davis had all the rushing yards. I don't know. I feel like this is a Russell Wilson game. So what do you think the score will be?
The score will be 27-24 Green Bay.
27-24 GB, and a notable stat. Give me a notable stat. What will happen? What player will do what that's interesting?
How would Devontae Adams has over 100 yards receiving?
Okay. That's pretty good. The Seattle has a tough secondary, so that would be surprising. I agree with that. I'm going to say Seattle wins this game. I think Seattle will win by a score of...
How dare you? I'm just kidding.
27 to... I think 27-24, the opposite. So you have 27-24. I think 27-24. I say that Seattle defense intercepts Aaron Rodgers 2 times.
He intercepts Aaron Rodgers twice.
Yeah, the Seattle defense will intercept Aaron Rodgers, and that will triple his number, right? Because he has 1 pick, so he'll end the game with 3 picks on the year. So, yeah, that's what I think. 2 INTs for Seattle.
2 INTs for Seattle. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, we're going to take a short break, but when we come back, we'll be talking about the little incident that happened at this very low college game between, was it Pittsburgh State and Nichols?
State and Nichols, yep.
Yep. We'll talk about that in detail and just about sportsmanship.
Hey, at least this Thursday night football game, though, has some excitement to it. Like, I'm actually pretty excited to watch this game, whereas some of the past ones have been a little low key, right?
Sure, just let's say those things.
All right, so let's get a break.
We'll be right back.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back to the GSMC Sports Podcast. We just finished talking about the Thursday night football matchup that's happening between the Green Bay Packers and the Seattle Seahawks. But now we're going to go into some interesting matters at hand. This has been really taking over the internet as of late in social media, and a lot of professional athletes, especially in basketball, have said their piece about it. Mm-hmm. But a Pittsburgh State player by the name of Keywan Platt threw a cheap shot at a Nichols player, Nick. What was his last name? Nick
Tenaglia. I'm not sure
how you pronounce that.
Nate Tenaglia.
Nate, sorry. But
all right.
I don't think anyone's going to get on me for
It's not really important in the story.
But what happened was he played through a really disgusting cheap shot at him. Like, it was he shot the ball, and then 5 seconds after he shot the ball, after it already went in, he elbowed him right in the face.
Right.
Absolutely intentional.
Yeah, Tenaglia takes a three from the corner, and you see Platt run out like a, at lockout or closeout defending, where you raise your hand and run towards the shooter so you give him something to think about.
He wasn't even running towards him. He was casually walking along, and then bam, he hit him in the head.
And then he just straight up swings his elbow. One of the dirtiest cheap shots you'll ever see in sports.
The most unnecessary cheap shot I've ever seen. Like, what's the cause of that? Like, apparently even the coach was like, there was no, usually there's they were talking smack to each other. Like, there was none of that. The coach even said that. It's like, there was nothing I saw that would cause this awful.
Mm-hmm. You see Tenaglia, he shoots the ball, he gets hit in the face by that cheap shot, and then
he got right back up, all things considered.
Yeah.
That could have knocked somebody out.
You see him go down immediately, and it's all on video. Like, it's obvious. It's not a question.
You probably have seen it, but it's just a really disgusting act.
Yeah. So,
just sportsmanship is one of the things that you should learn as a kid. And I know you can be frustrated if your team's losing or one guy's beating you offensively and you're playing defense as hard as you can with him. But actually assaulting him, if that happened in the street, regardless of who it is, you're going to be arrested.
Right. It is pretty crazy that Tenaglia actually finished the game. He stayed in the game.
Yes.
He continued to play after taking that.
Could have been a broken nose, broken jaw. Who knows what could have happened.
Yeah, when you watch the video too, you're pretty surprised that somebody is still able to play after that, because, it was a straight MMA style elbow, to an unsuspecting person. So
absolutely, and no, it didn't seem the guy didn't say anything offensive to the guy. He shot the ball, and then all of a sudden he's on the ground. It was unprovoked, and that's the thing that gets me. It was unprovoked. They were talking trash to each other, and maybe he said something offensive. I would get that, but there was nothing of it. He just randomly went up there and hit him in the face, and that's wrong. That's absolutely wrong.
So what happened to the player?
Well, he's been suspended indefinitely and banned from campus.
Okay, so he can't even be around the other students at his school, at least on campus.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm surprised he wasn't expelled from school or anything, because like we said, that could easily be an arrest.
So Fitchburg State put out a statement that I'd like to read.
Go for it.
Fitchburg State community is appalled by the conduct displayed during Tuesday night's home basketball game. The player involved has been indefinitely suspended from the team and barred from campus effective immediately. His behavior is anti-ethical to our community values and good sportsmanship. Fitchburg State does not tolerate behavior that violates those standards. The case is being reviewed at the student conduct level for consideration of further sanctions.
So possible removal him from the school entirely. That's my guess of what that means.
I'll say right now, I don't think that, in addition to him being arrested, I think that he should be kicked. I think he should be kicked out of the school. I absolutely believe that, because if you don't take somebody if you don't take someone away from your college due to that, what will you? What will it take for that to happen? I don't think it was bad sportsmanship as much as I think it was just an actual it's hard to say without crossing the line here, but I just think that's terrible human behavior. I don't like. It's not even sportsmanship conversation to me. It's like I don't want that person in my school.
And he was. I'm looking at the video right now, and he just casually walks up to him, hits him as hard as he can, obviously, and then just jogs away. Like, my question is, where's his teammates in that matter?
I think that we can both agree on this. Mm-hmm. That's probably not the first nor the last time that kid will be involved with something like that. It might be the first time he got caught, but who does that? You know what I mean?
To do that maybe it was an off thing. Maybe he's done that and he just got caught. Maybe, but that seemed extremely intentional, and I don't think he cared if anyone saw. Like this seemed like it didn't look like he was trying to make it look like an accident. You know when some players like go for a block in the elbow to get in the face, like
there's stuff that happens in the heat of the moment. I agree with that, but that wasn't one of those things. That was
there was
just
no
something.
Heat of the moment,
right?
I don't know what the score was. I don't know what the situation was. There was no arguments. There was no talking trash to each other, like I said before. Like there was no absolute reason for him to do that. That's putting harm on someone else, and that's absolutely wrong.
That looked predetermined. Like it looked like he thought, okay, the next time down the court.
And by the way, he still made the three after getting hit in the face, which I thought was like, oh, that's he. And the thing
did
was,
he get the and one on that? By the way,
I believe he got.
They got the technical.
He got the technical, but that was it. It was after the shot, so it was way after the shot too. It was like he shot the ball. The ball was going in the basket as he was getting hit in the face, so it didn't affect his shot at all. He was just trying to hurt the guy.
And at first, too, based on like the reaction of the referee and stuff, it doesn't look like everybody kind of knew what was going on.
The referee didn't see it. He was looking at the basket. He was looking at if it went in the inbounds pass. It was behind him.
Yeah, but I mean, you'd think that one of the referees would have saw. Like he was assessed.
Oh, the ref did. There was a ref off camera. Like you could see his head a little bit. I'll show him. Like see in the bottom right corner. That ref shows he shot the three and then calls the foul.
He calls the foul, but that's almost one of those plays where if you're a ref, you kind of like probably grab the kid and just, like, because you have to think that there's probably going to be a fight.
It looks like, he didn't really get in the kid's face at all or anything, but he obviously did it in between two refs, so he didn't care about who saw. It felt like this was like, was the dude talking to his girlfriend? I'm trying to think of other ways this would cause that kind of behavior.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but I think Platt is an embarrassment for his school, Fitchburg State.
Oh, there's so many players in the NBA that are disgusted by this. Isaiah Thomas, Stephen A. Smith went off on him on social media. He posted on the Instagram he should be arrested. This is assault, which is true.
That is assault. That is not you said. There's heat of the moment. Maybe a guy swings an elbow when he's going up for a rebound or something like that. But then there's just straight up predetermined. I'm going to knock this kid out.
There's sometimes like kind of brawls, like tussles, like pushing each other.
Sure.
Maybe some punches thrown. That's one thing. And like heat of the moment, like we were saying.
Yeah.
But this. Dude did not see it coming. It was a cheap shot. It was intentionally trying to harm somebody, and there was no reason for it. Absolutely.
And it's on tape, so I think Fitchburg State, they'll do the right thing, and they'll remove him at least from the basketball team and probably take away his scholarship if he has one, because I think that's what needs to be done here, at least. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Any other comments about this, or like? Does this remind you of like the the Ron Artest, or I'm sorry,
Palace at the Malice?
No, the Meta World Peace when he elbowed Harden in the head. Do you remember that play?
Yeah, I honestly don't think anything is like this though. Like I know what you're saying, but man, this was just more violent and more unsuspecting.
That Meta World Peace elbow was pretty violent.
Yes, it was.
I know what you're meaning.
This just this kind of rubs me the wrong way, to be honest with you. So that's all I got for it, though. We'll see what they do.
Yeah, we're gonna take a break. When we get back, we'll say other news and quirks that we want to discuss in the world of sports. So we get right on that when we return.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red-hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's gsmcpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome to the last segment of the GSMC Sports Podcast. We just finished talking about the little incident at Pittsburgh State and Nichols College and the incident with the cheap shot. Now we're going on to other news in sports, and you have some baseball awards you want to talk about. Who you want to talk about? Who's won?
Yeah, so some of the awards have been announced. MVP will be announced today, so probably by the end of when we do this show, of course, because that's how it normally works out, but the MVP has not been announced. Here are the finalists for the American League: Mookie Betts, Jose Ramirez, and Mike Trout. The National League finalists are Nolan Arenado, Javier Baez, and Christian Yelich. Who do you think will win?
I like Yelich in the National League, to be honest with you.
I'm with you on that.
And, if it's like a popularity contest, Mike Trout's probably going to win American League because that's kind of how things work there. But I don't know. I can see Mookie Betts also. I believe Mookie Betts will win, though.
I think Mookie Betts will win, too. I'm with you there because, like Yelich, those two players were were maybe the most important players for their teams and how their seasons went, and both teams went really far. I'm with you, though. Mookie Betts for me, Yelich. I do want to point out, though, is Mike Trout the most underrated superstar to ever play baseball?
Underrated?
Yeah, he's hardly talked about.
Maybe because he's on a team that's not very good.
I mean, when you look at his numbers, he's doing like Mickey Mantle type stuff. Like, his numbers are insane, and he's just like not really a household name. Like, not very many people know his face other than baseball fans. It's crazy.
True in that sense, but I still think he'll get recognition. I think he's still can be popular. So I'm not going to say anything yet.
Sure.
But, he maybe deserves a little more recognition. But he's on a team that's not good.
Yeah. Okay. So that award will be announced. But we do have Cy Young winners. For the Rays, Blake Snell. He wins the Cy Young for the American League. Are you surprised?
Not really. Are you?
I mean, if you would have told me before the season, I would have said, who? Like, are you sure?
Yeah, but he's been playing phenomenal.
Yeah, absolutely. So he wins the Cy Young. I mean, he was 21-5, 1.89 ERA, 6 in strikeouts. I mean, I understand why he won. It's just interesting. It's cool for him and for the Rays. They don't win a lot of awards, so it's nice to see. And for the National League, Jacob deGrom won from the Mets. Are you surprised by that?
A little bit, because a Mets guy won something.
A Mets and a Rays pitcher.
All due respect, but yeah.
A Mets pitcher and a Rays pitcher won the Cy Youngs this year, which is pretty funny.
Rays have been playing extremely well. They just got unlucky in that circumstance. But with a Mets guy winning, that's...
I am happy, though, that they disregarded win-loss record for the Cy Young, because that is kind of a dumb stat when you think about a Cy Young. I mean, a pitcher can't... I guess in the National League, the pitcher does get a chance to hit the ball, but all you could do is pitch a good game and hope your team gets enough hits to win, gets enough runs to win, right? So
that is the name of the game.
Yeah, but for a pitcher, if you have a 1.70 ERA and you barely finish above 500 in your record, I think that shows that win-loss record for a pitcher is kind of a relevant stat. It's all about that ERA. It's all about how many runs you gave up. How many runs cross the plate when you pitched? If you're at 1.7, that's pretty darn good.
Yes, 1.7 is a godlike number.
His career ERA is 2.67 now, so that's pretty
impressive. For a career, that's impressive.
Yeah.
That's great for one season, but a career?
Mm-hmm. He had a 3.5 ERA last year, so he cut that in half for DeGrom, which is, again, very impressive. So I want to talk about Manager of the Year. Who do you think won Manager of the Year in the American League?
For the American League?
Yeah.
Probably the Red Sox manager who won 108 games.
You would think, wouldn't you? But it's actually not Alex Cora.
How?
Bob Melvin from the Athletics, who had a very good season in his own right, was awarded the Manager of the Year.
No. Absolutely not. I'm sorry, no. The Rays manager deserves it more than he does.
Well, the A's did make the playoffs. They were a surprising team. So
no.
I kind of understand it, but it is weird not to give Cora the Manager of the Year. Who do you think won in the National League?
That's a tough one because there wasn't like a clear dominant.
So who do you think won in the National League?
Give me Milwaukee.
I thought that could be, but it's not Craig Counsell. It is Brian Snitker, who is probably
what is going on?
He's the Braves.
I know. They played great, but I still think Craig Counsell deserved that. He took them to the National League Championship. I know it's a regular season thing, but you should put how far they got in the postseason into perspective at this juncture.
Yeah, that's true, but I mean, at the same time, the Braves had an extremely a very good season. When you consider where they came from. Just the last few years, the Braves have been kind of a bottom feeder team. So I get it. Okay, so who do you think won Rookie of the Year?
Rookie of the Year?
For the American League and the National League.
Gosh, that's a tough one. Who won? I can't.
Ohtani won from the Angels.
Okay.
He won American League Rookie of the Year. And then in the National League, the Braves outfielder Ronald Acuna won. So
Acuna makes sense.
Yeah. I think they both make sense.
Just someone from the Angels winning because they didn't have a very good season, if at all.
Well, I mean, it's independent of the team, right? Like DeGrom won the Cy Young and Snell.
You also got to look at the success of the team for this kind of stuff, no? Especially with like MVP stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we are waiting for the MVPs to be announced, but other than that, those are your Major League Baseball awards that were announced in the last couple days.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, did you see... Now, I know this might not be of importance to a lot of people, but in the world of soccer, VAR is now, they have voted, and it will now be implemented in England, so the English Premier League will now be using it. All the major leagues in Europe have now transitioned.
What does VAR stand for?
Video assistant referee.
It's
replay.
Fans, yeah. It's basically your challenge.
Mm-hmm.
Is it gonna be like challenges, like in football?
No, it's not. But they review anything because, like in soccer, there's basically like goal scoring opportunities, penalties, things like the most important plays are reviewed. So it doesn't really need like a challenge like in the NFL where like you can challenge a lot of different things all the time. They're always going to look again at like a goal scored or handball in the box or something like that. But it is significant because we saw video assistant referee, like we saw that it was controversial, but now the World Cup is using it. And now all the major domestic leagues in Europe are using it. Champions League has not adopted it yet, but now you can see how they probably will adopt it in the upcoming season or two because if all the other major leagues are already using it, teams from those leagues that are playing in the Champions League, they'll adopt it. I can safely say that. So
yeah, but I've always liked replay. Even like baseball with replays has been great. Like it's been changing a lot of it.
I like the human aspect, but I mean, at the end of the day, I want the calls to get right.
There are some calls in baseball and like soccer that just need to be reviewed and changed. Like especially in baseball, where like someone will miss like a obvious call. Like, he clearly tagged him, but he said he's safe, like that kind of thing.
Right.
So at least that's kind of stuff that you should look into. So,
what do you say to the people who are like the purists of the sports? Like, what do you say? Like, no, like human error is important.
Get with the times, son.
I just wonder, why do people like the randomness of human error? That like when people argue that, I always am wondering, like, don't you just want the call right? Like I'm always.
But that's not how the game worked back in my day in 1944. We didn't have replays. We had sticks with rats with bats and
rats with bats.
I don't know.
Rats running around with bats. That sounds like a scary time to be living in.
Do you have a rat infestation? Do they have baseball bats?
You open up the basement and there's like 14 rats with baseball bats.
They're playing baseball down there. I would watch a rat baseball league. Or, you know what? A squirrel baseball league.
The hell is
You know squirrels
on?
doing like water skiing? I want to see squirrels playing baseball. I would watch that so hard.
And anyways, here's a squirrel on a water ski.
What?
You know, like on the news, like you know, you watch the news and it's like depressing story.
Then it's this funny
Anyways,
story.
here's a squirrel on a water ski. See you guys tomorrow. You know?
And then here's more about the fires that are taking homes away from people.
Yeah, it's like one of those things where they do that, where they end the newscast with a funny, heartwarming thing. So
I thought you were serious. Like I was like, what are we getting on? But yeah.
Did you see Zion Williamson last night? Monster dunk.
Did you hear LSU wanted him to play football?
I can't believe he's 285 pounds.
I can't believe he's not butter.
That
it?
That was not a good joke.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
No. Wah, wah, wah.
Nah, I thought that was pretty good.
No. Don't think so. But it's okay.
I liked it.
I miss all the time, dude. Shoot or shoot, though. Shoot or shoot.
I'm going to stand by what I said.
Hey, did you see Usain Bolt? He had his run in the Australian Soccer League. He was offered a contract, but he decided to turn it down. He's going to explore his options. He says that he's been in contact with many teams around the world in the United States and Germany, in different parts, different countries. Teams are obviously interested in getting a piece of Usain Bolt. I mean, he's 32 years old. He's a name. He's, the fastest man in the world, quote unquote.
He is the fastest man.
I mean, is he still, though?
All right, you race him. Let's see what happens.
I mean, I'll lose.
Okay, how about...
I'll throw a stick at him when he's running. Hopefully it gets caught between his legs.
Okay, fine. How about we have him race Tyreek Hill?
Ooh.
That would be a good
I'd
race.
watch that. He'd probably win, but still, Tyreek Hill is fast.
I feel like Tyreek Hill will come close. Maybe Marquise Goodwin in that race, too.
I'll put Goodwin.
Our Marquise Goodwin's an Olympic sprinter, so I will put him in there, too.
Put Goodwin, Tyreek Hill, and 32-year-old Usain Bolt, and I'll watch it. How much? Take my money.
How about like $17,000?
What about when Chad Johnson raced that horse?
That was he got a head start.
Yeah, that was dumb.
He obviously won because he had like a 10-yard head start. It was an unfair head start for sure. It felt like, you know what, he's gonna win if he's getting that much, you know?
Mm-hmm. All right, well, that's all I got for sports today.
Yes, sports is sports, and thank you so much for sporting with us. We have our sports podcast, so sports.
Join us tomorrow as we go over that Thursday night football game again. Jeff has Green Bay winning 27-24. I have the same score, but for the Seattle Seahawks. I think it should be a good game. Please join us tomorrow. Not only will we discuss this game, we'll talk about other games that happen in the NBA. We'll talk about who won the American League MVP, of course, as we await that decision here in the next couple hours. And obviously, we'll talk about all the upcoming events that are happening this weekend in the NFL and the NBA and across the world of sports.
Yes, thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you next time.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.